Welcome to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. It is election time, and here at Jersey Matters, we do have a mission to try to talk to all of the candidates that are running for all of the major positions. With that in mind, here is Mary Sabrin, who is the Libertarian candidate for Senate from New Jersey, running against Bob Menendez and Bob Hugin. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Larry.
I appreciate you being here. What we normally do when we have a candidate come in for the first time is just take a moment to tell the listeners and viewers who you are.
Sure. I was born in West Germany right after World War II. My parents were the only ones who survived the Holocaust. All their family members were killed during the war. We came to America. We lived in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, as many immigrants after World War II did. We moved to the Bronx, went to school throughout the Bronx, got married in 1968. In August, my wife and I will be celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary. I've just completed my 33rd year teaching finance at Ramapo College. I've written a book on how we could have a much better economy by really downsizing the federal government and state governments as well. And now I'm working on a book on how we can move even further by having social entrepreneurship be the way that people can get services instead of relying on the federal or state government. Libertarian
has become sort of a hip term for people who don't want to call themselves a Republican. A lot of times people will say, no, I'm not a Republican, I'm a Libertarian. I believe in personal rights. Define for me what you believe a Libertarian is.
Well, the basic premise of libertarianism is that you don't have the right to commit aggression against anyone else. It's called the non-aggression principle, which means that live and let live, anything that's peaceful, which is the title of a book by a libertarian economist in the 1940s. It's basically the founding principles of this country. The Bill of Rights is a libertarian document. The freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the right to defend yourself based upon the Second Amendment, the right to have privacy according to the Fourth Amendment, the no self-incrimination according to the Fifth Amendment, and all the rights that are there that recognize our basic individual rights. And that's the key for libertarians. It's individual rights. It's not group rights. There are no such thing as group rights in a libertarian society. It's all individual rights that everyone has. In other words, it's a universal principle.
When Gary Johnson ran, who was maybe the most successful libertarian presidential candidate, ran for office, he said, I am for smaller government, I'm not for aggression overseas, and
right.
social matters, I don't give a damn. Is that pretty much where you stand?
Well, I believe that since aggression is unacceptable, that means abortion should be not acceptable because it's a form of aggression. It is aggression against an unborn child. And therefore, there are libertarians who are pro-life, there are libertarians who are pro-choice, and there are libertarians who are not either way on the issue.
So he didn't necessarily define what a libertarian was. That was
right.
who he was,
right.
not necessarily what
right.
a libertarian was.
Right.
Let's get into some of the issues if we can, and I also want to touch on how difficult it is for a third-party candidate to run. But one of the knocks against the Democratic Party right now as they enter the midterm elections is that their message seems to be, we got to stop Trump. And not exactly what I'm going to do for you, but we have to stop Trump. First of all, do you agree with that? And is that close to your message? How do you feel about Donald Trump?
Well, I feel that both parties are intellectually bankrupt. Listen, they've been in control of the federal government for 160 years, since Abraham Lincoln was elected the first Republican president. They've taken the national debt from $0 to $21 trillion. We have $200 trillion of unfunded liabilities. We have bases all over the world. The founders did not envision America, a free America, with an overreaching federal government, domestically and internationally. My job as a candidate to explain to the people, let's try something new. Let's try liberty. Let's try freedom.
So you're gonna skip the question. You're not gonna tell me how you feel about Donald Trump?
Oh, I'll tell you right away. Depends on what the issue is. On the trade issue, he's awful. He's doing trade what the American colonists revolted against, called mercantilism, where the government would control international trade. This is a horrible, horrible policy. Cutting taxes are good, but you should also cut spending because otherwise you're going to explode the budget deficit. And we're running $1 trillion budget deficit in a good economy. So what's the budget deficit going to look like if the economy turns south like 2008 or 2009? This is where we're being set up for a major, major financial crisis in the future.
There was a poll recently that showed the race between, you weren't included in the poll, I should say, and we'll get to that in a second. The race between Hugin and Menendez was closer than anybody thought, but one of the reasons was almost 50%, more than 40% were undecided. To many, that seemed like an indictment against Bob Menendez because he has such name recognition and people were rejecting him. Do you see it that way?
It's an indictment against both political parties because if both political parties can't get a substantial amount of voters on their side in a poll, and I was excluded, I would like to know where, if I were included in the polls, where would that 46% go to? And I think this is the intellectual dishonesty of some of the pollsters because I've run before as a Libertarian candidate for governor in 1997. I've run in the past, so therefore they should include me as a credible candidate because I have ideas that are resonating throughout the state. I've been throughout the state campaigning, collecting signatures for the ballot access, which we did successfully. So I think I can offer the people of New Jersey and the people of the United States, quite frankly, a better vision than both Republicans and Democrats who've been in control for 160 years.
And you touched just by saying that on some of the problems that a third-party candidate has. Is that the major problem, not being involved in the polls? Or is there a bigger problem?
Well, there's a bigger problem because most people think it's a wasted vote. It's not a wasted vote. It's like saying both parties are like they have 100% market share of politics. Along comes the third party with better ideas, and people say, no, don't vote for them because the two parties are so entrenched. Let's not upset the apple cart. So I reject that because I think I have much better ideas than both Bobs, Bob M and Bob H.
Don't vote for Bob is what your
campaign should be. That's it, don't vote for Bob. Two Bobs, no difference. That's the whole point.
Let me get to your ideas. You've mentioned them a couple of times, some of your ideas.
Right.
You have an interesting one on charitable donations.
Absolutely. I think we need to get rid of the welfare state. And Peter Drucker wrote about this 30 years ago. He said the welfare state is unsustainable, it's unworkable, it's bureaucratic. So I believe we should have a 100% tax credit for every American taxpayer who donates $1 to a nonprofit or a house of worship. The goal is to make people financially independent so they can stand up on their 2 feet. The nonprofits do great work in New Jersey, all over the country, in healthcare, in education, in social services, you name it. There are 3 million nonprofits. That includes the colleges, universities, hospitals, health centers, food banks, you name it. So if we have money staying in New Jersey instead of going into Washington, D.C., we will have a much better economy here, much better economy across the country, and the goal will be to create a more harmonious, peaceful, and successful economy.
We're almost out of time, and I want to get to at least one of the big issues of the day, and that is the separation of children from adults at the border. What would you do about that?
The problem is we have an overreaching federal government. Let's keep the families intact. Let's have a process where people who really want asylum, they can be vetted. And here's the important point that I want to make. Let's have sponsors bring people in if they want to and follow some guidelines that will vet people so they're not criminals, they don't have illnesses, and not have the taxpayer be burdened with all the problems that some of these immigrants have.
All right, sir, I know you have a lot more to talk about. Come back. We'll have another conversation. Mary Sabrin is the Libertarian candidate for U.S. Senate in New Jersey. Jersey Matters continues right after this. Still to come on Jersey Matters, it's that time of year again when the sky is filled with balloons. We'll tell you all the details about the upcoming New Jersey Festival of Balloons next.